We are the forgotten frontline. This is for the mother who said a forever goodbye to her only son. This is for the father who held his daughter for the very last time. This is for the girl whose heart broke in two as she kissed the love of her life goodbye. This is for the boy whose life was cut short and torn by duty. This is for the angels dressed in red and white who healed the wounded and wiped the stoic tears of our very brave soldiers. This is for those who were left behind, who worked tirelessly to fill the empty shoes of those who left to fight for our country. This is for the men and women, the strong, the independent, the forgotten frontline. Kia ora, I am Jordyn Tereu, and today I stand for the brave, the courageous, the selfless and resilient Kiwi heroes of World War I. Anzac Day has been a time of remembering those who fought for the freedom of our country. Yet alongside recognising the heroic acts of our brave Kiwi soldiers, we seem to forget about appreciating the remarkable efforts of our Kiwi women. Women who showed extraordinary courage and strength. Women who provided the support and foundation for our armed forces throughout the Great War. Women whose contribution to the amazing Anzac legend has barely been recognised in our history. These women, I stand for them. For 100 years ago, these amazing women, alongside the many brave, courageous, selfless and resilient Kiwi soldiers, stood for the freedom of our country. So let me take you on a journey which for me has sparked appreciation, a journey which will set the Anzac spirit alight. What is a hero to you? Strong, brave, fearless? It is important to acknowledge the fact that heroes is one word which has inspired the Anzac legend for a very long time. It is a word which continues to influence our perception on New Zealand's contribution to the Great War. Tom Hanks once said, "A hero is someone who voluntarily walks into the unknown." 1914 was a time of the unknown. 1914 was a time of heroes. As war was declared, the lives of many New Zealanders changed. Around 128,000 men were enlisted in the New Zealand Expeditionary Force. Of these, 16,000 were expected to be killed, and 41,000 left as casualties. The amount of courage and bravery these men possessed to this day are honoured. This large number of wounded soldiers throughout World War I required an elite group of trained nurses, our angels dressed in red and white, whose hands served under the Red Cross. Around 500 New Zealand nurses served overseas during the war, this being a quarter of our nation's nursing workforce. The amount of compassion and sacrifice these women possessed to this day remains unrecognised, lest we forget. The absence of our men resulted in a large void in our workforce. More jobs were vacated, which meant women were soon recruited. And although the pay they received was lower than men for the same work, women continued to uplift our country throughout World War I. The amount of strength and resilience these women possessed to this day remains unrecognised, lest we forget. October 23rd, 1915, the sinking of the hospital ship the Marquette added to the grief of our nation, still reeling from the heavy losses at Gallipoli. Among the fatalities were 32 New Zealanders, including 10 New Zealand nurses. This making the 23rd of October the deadliest day in this nation's history of military nursing. To many of the wounded soldiers, nurses represented a role far beyond that of physical care. Bonds between nurses and wounded soldiers extended beyond words. Nurses buoying the spirits of men, physically and psychologically battered by the war. The amount of compassion and service these women possessed to this day remains unrecognized. Lest we forget. Lest we forget the bravery. Lest we forget the sacrifice. Lest we forget the tears shed and the blood spilled as the Anzac spirit fades more than we realize. Why not remember the hands who healed the wounded and wiped tears away? Why not remember our heroes, both the men and women who gave us today? Because if all shall be forgotten, then the spirit shall be lost. Because for me, a true hero is not just defined by the Victoria Cross. So join me in the battle to keep the Anzac spirit alive, for the freedom of our country is only won when we unite. Heroes. This is a word which has defined the Anzac legend for a very long time. But I believe it is time now for it to be redefined. For so long, the strong, brave, and fearless men who battled on the front line have been the face of our Anzac legend. And throughout this time, I believe the efforts and untold stories of the remarkable women have gone throughout history, barely touched and unrecognized. It must be made clear, not did one man fight alone, nor did only men fight together, but throughout this time of horrific tragedy, men and women fought together. It is only fitting that while aiming to keep the Anzac spirit alight and burning for many years to come, we acknowledge the strength of our nation as a whole. The freedom of our country was won by the brave and valiant men and by the strong and selfless women. Together, it was won. Together, they sacrificed their today so that we could have a tomorrow. They are all our heroes of today. Because a true hero is not defined by the size of his strength, but by the strength of his heart. Lest we forget the forgotten front line. Thank you.